Hey everybody, welcome back to FHN Northwest. We're in the bait lab, brought to you by Sportco and Max Lure. Hey, we're gonna talk about blackmouth fishing tonight and all of the rigging required for blackmouth fishing. We got some really resident, some resident Chinook out there that are absolutely hungry. And if you heed this advice, you're gonna put fish in your boat, trust me. Now, as you look at the table, you're gonna see a lot of a couple colors, but you're gonna see a lot of glow and you're gonna see a lot of green as you look across the table. Now, I had a chance to give some seminars at the Seattle Boat Show, and when I was there, I stopped by the Pro Troll booth. And so you're also gonna notice that I picked up some of the latest and greatest that they have to offer in their flasher lineup. And so, one of the things that I wanna point out here, and anytime I'm fishing blackmouth, this is I'm pretty religious about this. You have to at least have, 50% of your flasher should be glow, right? Now you can have some of those other features on your flashers that, different Mylars, kind of the moon jelly style. Red Racer's really popular, especially when we do have a San Juan fishery. But you want to make sure that the glow is present, right? One of the other things that Pro Trolls come out with, which I think is absolutely genius, and I do think it's an important factor, especially when you are fishing deep water, especially when the water clarity isn't great, is to have something that, provides an extra flash, right? And so with these flashers, you've got now a blinking light in the middle of the flasher. These last about 80 hours. You can replace them. You can also buy their stick-on models, which last up to 200 hours. But if you think about it, and you think about, just putting a light off the dock, right? When we go squidding, what are we doing? We use lights, right? That collects basically the basis of your food chain, right? All of those phytoplanktons, those zooplanktons, and then the bait fish show up, and then the bigger predators show up, everything from salmon to pinnipeds, it doesn't really matter. So it makes a lot of sense to be able to put off that light in the water column to attract the fish. And do I think it matters every day? No, but I absolutely think that when you're having a really tough day, and the fish are scattered or they're just not biting, it's something that a little bit extra that are gonna bring them into your spread. So, the first thing I would do is really, start with a flasher that's got this kind of profile to it and this kind of light emitting feature to it. The other thing I'll say is, this is a standard flasher. So if you do want to turn this into a breakaway flasher, if you remember, Dwayne did a bait lab a while back that shows how you can convert your standard flasher to a breakaway so that you're not actually fighting the flasher when you're salmon fishing. So it's a great idea to go back and find that one. Now let's go back down to the table. What I want to talk about next is really size profile, right? And so what I did here is I laid out, starting with your coho killer, going to your kingfisher. You've got two coho killers, and really from the surface, they look the same, right? You got different eye color, but then when you look at the back, you've got a glow side. This is your Irish cream, right? And then you've got the chrome on the two face. So you've got kind of the chrome, and then you've got the glow and the UV on the other side. As you go this direction, you've got your 2-inch, you've got your 3-inch, you've got a 3.5, and you've got your 4-inch. Now, you might think, we're fishing blackmouth, isn't that a small lure game? Aren't they eating sand lance or small herring? And I tell you what, salmon can be a finicky eater, right? And so, Dwayne and I saw this last summer fishing the Chinook bite right off Nia Bay. They wanted nothing but, and these are summer run king salmon, and they wanted nothing but the 2-inch kingfisher, chrome face, that's it. They wouldn't take any other spoon, they wouldn't take any other size, that's it. And so when you look at this lineup, that's why I've got every size listed here, because if you go out there and say you want to run, a small profile, because you are fishing blackmouth, and you start with the 2-inch, but you're into small fish, right? And so you're constantly just releasing these fish. Well, your goal is not to go out there and release a bunch of sublegal fish and put a lot of hooks and mouths, right? That's not the goal. Your goal is to catch keeper-sized Chinook that you can bring home and put in your freezer or on your grill. And so in that scenario, right, it makes sense to step up to that bigger size, right? But on any given day, until you sample that first fish and know what they're feeding on, you don't know whether they've got the 3-inch bait in their stomach or they've got a 4-inch bait. So you really gotta be ready to vary your presentation until you find something that works. On the other side of the table here, you've got your ace high flies. And same thing, You've got your junior, and sometimes, and I've seen a lot of micro herring over the past year and a half, you never know when they're gonna be on it. So having something small in there really goes a long ways. And by the way, these are all herring egg colors. This is your needlefish ace high fly. Slimmer profile, works when they're into the candlefish. You know, and the other thing is you'll know when you catch a blackmouth that they're in the candlefish, typically because you will see the scrape marks in their gills, in their gill covers, right? So that means they're down, they're on the bottom, and they're digging in the mud to find those bait. And then you've got your full profile ace high fly here. Okay. Another thing is, you know, you can always vary your profile by adding a tail wagger, okay? So go to the table here and take a closer look at this. So what is a tail wagger? The tail wagger is effectively this mini hoochie with there's a swivel in here. And this is a welded ring because this was bought exactly like this. But if you wanted to make your own, you can convert them with a size 4 split ring and your own hoochie, whatever color you want. They come in all sorts of different colors. I'm a big fan of anything that glows. Love pearl white, a lot of UV in here. But effectively what you're gonna do is you're gonna cut this solid ring, you're gonna install the split ring, and then you're gonna take one of these hoochies, take a small barrel swivel, insert it in there, attach a Siwash hook, right? Because that's what this is. You need to have an open eye so that you can crimp it onto your barrel swivel, and then you've just made a tail wagger rig. Now, the one thing I will tell you about this rig is that, and especially for blackmouth when we're typically trolling a little bit slower, maybe, you know, 1.5 miles, 2 miles an hour, it's not quite that, you know, ocean summer run king style speed, like 2.5 knots. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take this spoon, and if I put it on the table here, you should be able to see it. I'm gonna put a bend in just about the last quarter of this spoon, right? I'm gonna kick the tail over. And so I'm just gonna take it, put my thumbs together where I want that bend, and I'm gonna put a bend in it. And I'm gonna put it in the water, and I'm gonna swim this spoon. And at the speed that I'm going, if it's got enough action and it's wiggling right, I'm gonna leave it. If I feel like, it's kind of still a dog, I'm gonna bend it even more. It's better to have too much bend than not enough bend. You have to have the action there. Now, obviously, if you bend it at 90 degrees and it starts twirling, right, you bent it too much, but bend it back. The same thing goes with a coho killer. So when you look at a coho killer, and this applies to our blackmouth fishery as well as our summer fishery, you want to put a very aggressive bend in this coho killer, almost to the point where it's in a U. That is the bend that I want in a coho killer. Super aggressive, has lots of action, just a really good way to fish a coho killer. Okay, now it's not just about lures. I love lures because, you know, you're not sitting there wondering like, oh, is my bait still there? Did I rig it right? Did I rig it right? And it fished good for 5 minutes and then it lost its form and now it's doing a helicopter, right? Or it doesn't have that tight drill bit spin. And so the next thing I want to show you is I really want to show you a rig that's like a foolproof bait rig. Okay, absolutely love this rig. So let me bring this over into the table, move some of this other stuff aside. And so what you're looking at here is a Rice Davis head, okay? And you're looking at a rigging wire. They call it a teaser head tuning rod. Okay, there's the packaging. It comes in, I think there's about a 10 pack. And this is what it is. It's a wire and it's got a little hook on the end. And then this hook, you're gonna form into the 2 holes common to the vertical flange of this head right here. And you're gonna bend the wire back so it's pointing directly aft. Now what you're gonna do is you're gonna slide your bait onto this wire, and now that becomes the backbone of your bait, okay? And you can form it in whatever shape you want. And here's the other thing. This doesn't just work for anchovies. It works for anchovies, it works for red label, it works for green label, okay? It works for a variety of those baits. So really, really well. And so you're not sitting there cutting, you know, cut plug herring and then going, okay, well, it's been down there 20 minutes. It's probably mushroomed. I got to pull it up, right? Every time you take a line out of the water, you're not fishing. And so, you know, that kind of brings me to my next point. I've got these on the line, right? And I'll have maybe 2 down if I'm fishing all bait. but I've got 2 more rigged up. So if I get hit and I don't stick that fish and I bring it up and I've been, you know, just ripped off, I'm just gonna grab another leader and clip it right on and I'm good to go. If you bring it up and you're sitting there and you're rigging that next bait, you're wasting your time, right? So always try to have extras rigged on leaders ready to go. So it's just one snap and boom, you're going, you're on, okay? Yes, sir? There we go. Oh, I was wondering, there you go, one more. All right, can't forget those. You gonna keep throwing at me? All right, here we go. The magic sauce. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it, appreciate it. Okay, the only other thing I wanna mention about these wires is that you have to cut them, right? You're not gonna use a full length wire unless you were to run like a purple label herring maybe, okay? Even a blue label, you're gonna be cutting this wire. You don't want it coming out of the skin, okay? So keep that in mind. So that's the bait rig right there. You know, the other thing, and we've seen this from time to time, we saw it last summer. I know Dwayne's been out blackmouth fishing, and which is why he was throwing me some fire gel. But Pautzke's has done a really good job with their latest lineup, and we're pretty much always smothering the lures. And I joke a lot because Dwayne's putting this stuff on like cologne, deodorant, rubs it on himself, puts it in a spray bottle, hits his face a little bit, and then he rubs it all over my flashers. So I have to hide my flashers because he will just absolutely slather them like barbecue ribs, okay? Now, the other thing I do want to cover is, you know, there's always going to be a time where, you know, you're running bait, I'm not catching fish. You're running spoons, I'm not catching fish, okay? And maybe the bite was good and then it died and it seems like whatever you're throwing at him doesn't matter. That's when I'm gonna pull out the plugs. And so that's when I'm gonna come and troll fast, number one, right? So I'm gonna pick up my speed. Instead of trolling 2 miles an hour, it's gonna be 3 miles an hour, maybe more, and I'm gonna blaze through there. And so what I've got here is I've got a couple of the Silver Horde lineup, kind of the UV purple glow, kind of a green design here in pearl, and then your herring aid. And then I've got a couple smaller atomic plugs, okay? These are the 4-inchers right here. 602, and I can't quite remember this color, but kind of a green and pearl, an older school color. But I'm gonna troll fast, right? And I'm looking for a reaction bite, right? I'm looking to put something that you know, covers a wide swath, moves back and forth, and I'm gonna try to put that in their face to try to get a reaction bite. Kind of a totally different profile than something that looks like a wounded bait, right? With, you know, your hoochies, your ace high flies, your spoons, you're putting them behind a flasher. You know, the hoochies in particular, you're rigging with 40-pound test or greater because you're really trying to get that wounded bait roll out of the presentation. That's not the case with these plugs, right? With these atomic and Silver Horde plugs. These things swim, right? It looks like a live fish. And so what I do is I try to cover a lot of area, see if there's some place where the fish are that I didn't think of, and it gives me an alternative when nothing else is working, and you can kind of get that aggression bite instead of that, you know, wounded fish bite, okay? So kind of keep that in mind. And so, you know, with that, these are the tactics that I'm using when I go blackmouth fishing. You know, heed this advice. These tactics work really well, excuse me. You know, hit up Area 10 coming in a couple days. We got Sekiu on March 1st. It's gonna be phenomenal. Make sure you get up there.